which is the equivalent to no in this example. I want you to run this company down. I want you to tell me what's going wrong with it. Is it me? Is it Colin? Is it the systems? I want you to pick the bones of it, because I wanted them to give me their equivalent of no, we don't want it done like this, because then I could plug the gaps and try and improve it. But a lot of people just go on the crest of a wave.
Welcome back, Gaffers. Gavin Coyle here. I'm the Gaffer. Another great guest. Ray Murphy is joining us all the way from England. And we have some very topical issues to talk about today in terms of running your business successfully. And myself and Ray have had a pre-chat, if you like. And one of the things we want to discuss today is the analytics of a business and the health of a business. How do you know if your business is in a healthy state or in a decline state? And how are you monitoring that? Do you benchmark your business against other competitors or other people you know? Or how do you know where to look within the business so that you can see where there's a fault or maybe a failing, but also at the same time see where the success is and how do you grow that success? And I think that in itself as a topic for the 45 minutes or so that we have is absolute gold dust for you. And Ray's in a great position because he's built companies before, he's helped build companies, and he continues to help building companies. And he's offering us his free time for you to have his brain set, if you like, for the next 45 minutes. Ray Murphy, CEO of Acona Business Coaching. You are a certified business coach, but you are also a man that has walked the walk. And we are delighted to have you on. I'm the Gaffer. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you very much, Gavin. It's great to be invited. I'm honoured to be invited, and hopefully I can help where there's help required.
No problem. So tell me about the journey of Ray Murphy and how did you evolve into this construction, business, if you like, and where you got to bring us up to date for where you are today, if you like.
Yeah, I'll start from the construction element. Basically, I left school, not with any great qualifications, and I went into training as an accountant and hated it, absolutely hated it. And I was going to leave, and it was for a construction company, and a lovely company called John Lelliott's in Rains Park, quite a long time ago. And what happened is I was in the account. I decided to leave. John Lelliott found out that I was leaving. I'd been there from a boy to a young man, and he said, "We don't want you to go. Would you mind transferring over to the plant hire division?" So that was my first taste of, if you like, real construction. And so I started to run this little plant yard, and it grew, and then we turned it into a £3.5 million external plant company. So I become very familiar with, at that young age, I was in my early 20s, growing a company and looking at the pitfalls and sometimes how you can make horrendous cock-ups, and you learn by your mistakes. But also then they hooked onto that. They gave me some more staff, and they hooked onto that and gave me the car fleet. And I think it was about 200 vehicles. And I was effectively the plant and fleet manager for that. And during that time, there was some financial problems that John Lelliott's encountered, and they were taken over by Bovis. And yeah, Bovis had Wise Plant at the time. So I was offered to go as a plant manager for Wise Plant. But to be fair, I was at that point thinking that my career is, I think, somewhere else. I didn't quite know where I was going, but that's where I thought it was. It wasn't with plant. And then John Lelliott came to me and he said, "Look, we're going over there. We need somebody who can promote the company and knows the company." And I'd been with the company at the time 14 years, so I'd been a very long time right the way through. And I went into their marketing department and the company was kind of merged with Bovis, and it became a small refurb division of Bovis, and it was called Bovis Lelliott. And I was part of the marketing and business development team. Whilst that was going on, I started going to night school, and I'd worked my way through, and I was doing my MBA, my Master's in Business. And wrongly or rightly, somebody had left. He was head of the marketing division, and he had walked out, and there was nobody running the ship, running the department. So rather cheekily, I suppose, because I was still quite young, I took over his office and decided to run the team. And John Lelliott came down one day and said, "What are you doing in there?" I said, "Well, I've been here for 2 weeks. I've been running it." He said, "You're not experienced enough to run this." I said, "Well, I've been doing it I've been doing it up till now." So he asked me to go back and sit outside. So, I effectively realized that I need to leave now. So I went to another construction company as a marketing director. And there I met a wonderful guy called Colin Norman, who was the senior surveyor at the company. And cut a long story short, he had a dormant company, and that was, obviously I'm abridging this and fast tracking it, but he had a maintenance company. It was a dormant company. It's in its heyday probably turned over about 200,000. We got together. By now I'd left the company called Kingswood. Because again, I wanted to grow the company and have an input in the company. It was a family-owned business. They said no. So I said, okay, God, got to move on again. So I decided to move on again. And then me and Colin got together outside of that, and we started Sutherlands. And Sutherlands was, as I said, a very small dormant company. We took that it was probably about 8.5 million in its heyday, which today would probably equate to about 12, 13 million. So, and that was only commercial work, didn't really touch new builds, mainly refurbishments. And we worked with Jones Lang LaSalle, Clartons, all the BNP Paribas, all the main players in the industry at that particular time. And that is invaluable. And I will say that experience of being a business owner in the 07, 08 recession, we had to go and lay off a lot of people. We had to make a lot of people redundant and restructure the business to see if we could, because we'd spent a lot of money on these people, training them, but we had a lot of trades. I think there was probably about 30 people there, and we had to restructure it. And those redundancy conversations, those restructuring of the business, restructuring of the finance, you ain't going to find that in any textbook. And that experience, whilst the MBA gave me a framework for business, the experience I had going through those situations were invaluable. And I think Jim Rohn says, the famous management guru, great guy, passed away now, but he said you should always invest more in yourself than you do on your business. And if anybody's listening now and they're starting their journey, do it now. Start to educate yourself by listening to I'm the Gaffer and listening to people that have been there and got the t-shirt, because the people that have had, and also I think as a business owner, I'm kind of digressing now, but I'm speaking from the heart, is at that time I had a very successful business. I had a very successful home life. I had an MBA. And I think if somebody in my position as a business coach would have come and said to me, look, if we do this and you do that, we can help you, my arrogance would have said, no, I know it all. Look where I am, but with the benefit of hindsight, I'm a lot more qualified now than I was then. And I would always say, definitely ask for help. Definitely work on yourself, improve your own personal knowledge.
Yeah, no, I 100% champion that. That was one of the themes of this podcast, is to try and give people the nuggets of information that they can take back into their business. Were you a co-founder or so in that construction business, Ray?
Yes, yeah. There was originally 3 of us, and me and Colin bought out the third partner, and then we ran it effectively for 10 years. It's probably a 10-year. There's some of the dynamics. So what happens? Me and Colin made a perfect partnership. Colin could walk into a building. I don't know. Say we're walking into a derelict public house. He could look at it and say, well, we could probably make 12 flats out of this, and we'll make, I don't know, 500,000. He was great with the numbers, great with the maximizing the potential on site. And I effectively dealt with the marketing, the business development. I was more like the commercial guy. I would facilitate the meetings. I would deal with the staff. I would take those problems away from him so he could concentrate on the site. And he was exceptionally good at it. And to the company's testimony, I suppose, is that I don't think we had anybody leave in 7 years. It was only when we started to have the recession and pressure was put on us that we had to make some changes. But yeah, I'm a strong believer. Obviously, I'm a people person. Colin was a numbers person, but if you look after the people, the numbers look after themselves. Colin may say we look after the numbers, the people will find a way. But it was a great relationship, and I'm very thankful for his input and his support.
So you weren't design and build; you were a contractor.
Yeah, we're a main contractor. I suppose we done work from after going for a year or so, we set our base. Bearing in mind this is probably 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. So we set our base at 100,000. So I don't know what they equate to now, but the figures I'll use are from those days. And we done work up to £1 million. So only on a selective basis, and if me and Colin signed it off, or either one of us signed it off, would we do a job outside of those parameters. So I find in one of my clients recently, what happens with a lot of people is they see the shiny lights, they see the pound figures, and they chase the larger job because it is appealing. They think, oh yeah, we can do this. They don't really assess the resources. They don't look at the risk on that particular job. And I know one particular company that overstretched themselves, and they had to bring in subcontractors because they didn't have the resources in-house, and they lost a lot of money on that job. And you need, what happens in construction with a lot of construction companies, maybe less so in residential, but in commercial, because you may have an agreement with a company that is giving you repeat work on a regular basis. So in some cases, there may be a final payment or something due. They'll say, oh, look, we've got an arrangement with the client. Can you run it onto the next job? And if you don't understand the risk and you don't understand or have the confidence in your ability as a company to get new work, you say yes. Then they roll it onto a third job. All of a sudden, you've got a cash gap that is enormous. And if they then either delay or don't pay you, you've got a problem because you're still paying your suppliers, you're still paying your subcontractors. And yeah, I would definitely say, don't be afraid to say no. Even at our height, if there was a job that come in that was a very attractive job, but we had all of our people on site, I think we had 4 or 5 contracts managers, maybe 10, 12 site managers. If all of them were engaged, then even if it was a very good job, we would say no. We would say no, we can't give it the time it deserves, but I can recommend somebody for you to go on. I truly believe that if you're saying yes all the time, there's either something wrong with your pricing or you lack confidence.
Oh, it's a brilliant statement. We don't count enough how many times we say no. We always count the yeses.
Yeah.
It should be the reverse.
Exactly, yeah. There's a lot of famous people at the moment. If you do some research and just Google that, a lot of the senior, most successful people in the world see how many no's they can get within a month, not how many yeses, because it shows it's an indicator for so much. If somebody keeps saying yes, like for example, in our business, we used to have every quarter a staff meeting with everybody, and I facilitated the meetings, and I would say, don't tell me what's going wrong, which is the equivalent to the no in this example. I want you to run this company down. I want you to tell me what's going wrong with it. Is it me? Is it Colin? Is it the systems? I want you to pick the bones of it, because I wanted them to give me their equivalent of no, we don't want it done like this, because then I could plug the gaps and try and improve it. But a lot of people just go on the crest of a wave and they surround themselves with yes people, and that's dangerous.
Hi guys, as you're enjoying this podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to let you know about my company, Coil Group. We're not just another safety recruitment agency. We're your partners in building a safer future. With over 25 years of experience and more than 1 million hours of safety work completed, our mission is clear. Provide top-tier health and safety contractors tailored to the unique needs of your project. We also carry out on-site construction audits From wind energy to power stations, utilities and engineering projects, our global reach and specialised expertise ensures your operations are not just compliant, but exemplary. For more information on how ensuring safety and sustainability of your products using our team of HSE contractors, visit coil-group.com or click on the show notes or video description now. I've also put a booking link into the description for you to click and have a one-to-one conversation with me. Now, back to the podcast. Enjoy and see you soon.
Yeah, and I feel like what's in the back of my head as you're talking is there's a drag along model, which sings true to what you just said there about rolling one job onto the next job, and maybe even if you put the complication in that you might have and maybe a second company or a third company that's doing that model to you, like you're looking at a less than 12-month window, financial disaster window, basically. So it kind of leads us into the analytics that we want to talk about, the benchmarking. You know, what should we be doing with the business from a health perspective to do the health checks that you see that are crucial to monitor the daily, weekly, monthly forecast?
Yeah, that's a very broad, that's a big umbrella. That's
we have time. We
could spend a few hours on that one. But, I've never ever met a small company that had a system in place to monitor the performance of the business. They may have the odd, and it is odd, the odd KPI that they work to, or key performance indicator. I've met very few small companies that have a plan. They don't have a business plan, they have no structure. If I said, okay, I'm coming over to see you now, Gavin, and I would put my sat nav on, I would arrange some sort of plan to how to get there. And a lot of people just go with it. They just see where it takes them. And some of them are successful by default, but most of them struggle, or they're working 7 days a week and creating health problems. And I think there's a number of, especially in construction. For example, I was working with a heating engineer, and what I'll do, I'll give, if it's okay, I'll give some personal experiences, and if anybody's listening, they can relate this to their particular business or the same kind of scenario. Because it gets a bit stale if I just say, this is a ratio, you times this by this and this sort of thing. So, but there was a guy, who had an heating company. He had, I think, 3 live jobs on at the time. And, his guys were just calling off firms. It was some sort of thermostat that they were calling off. And I said to him, how often do you monitor the material, your charges, your costs? He said, well, I've got an agreement with the supplier. I said, yeah, but that's not the question. Cut long story short, those 3 identical thermostats were charged by the same supplier to the same company at 3 different prices. So what I say to people is, if you are, right, where can we go? Let's see. So, okay, if you're a building company, a lot of people focus on the turnover. Again, a lot of us know that turnover is really a bit of an ego trip. It's just a vanity. It's really about the money you're making from that. Now, with the cost of goods sold, or direct costs as I call it, where you've got your materials, your labourers, subcontractors, that sort of thing. If you can monitor those costs, say on a monthly, or definitely no longer than a quarterly basis, to see if there's any margin. If your gross profit is going down, then the only way it can go down really is if your turnover is the same. The only way it can go down is if you are spending more on the site. So what that means is, if you're becoming less efficient on the site, or your materials or costs are going up. So what I find with a lot of people, they either, which is sacrilege, they wait till the end of the year to see what their accountant tells them they've made, which is, well, I can't put it into words. That's just ridiculous. So you should, as a bare minimum, do it quarterly. I used to do it monthly in my own business. I used to produce my own profit and loss every month and see and compare, because if you can, it's like a golf swing. If you can find a small problem here. If you come down and you haven't corrected it, you're either going to miss the ball or you're going to slice it, because it coming down, the margin of error grows. So it's the same with a business. If you have a problem that starts in month 2, by month 10, that problem could be enormous. And there's so many things that you can get from that. It could be, let's assume that it could be your pricing. A lot of people, when they price, especially in small construction companies, they will price and say, put 20% on. Now, if I'm tendering for the same job and I have an office and I have staff, my overheads are going to be, for the sake of argument, 15%, just in this example. If I'm a smaller company and I'm working from a home office and I've only got an assistant and a couple of guys on site, my overheads arguably could be 10%. So that 20, you're not getting 20%. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that something as basic as that. So you should always factor that in. But there's key numbers that I think you should look at. One, definitely monitor your cost of goods sold, your gross profit. And actually, this may be a helpful figure if people are listening. Is a lot of people say to me, well, when is the right time to get an assistant? Because I find with a lot of smaller businesses, they can't differentiate between a cost and an investment. So if like a virtual assistant for a small growing business, they see the virtual assistant or an assistant as a cost. Now, there is a rule of thumb in business world that if you are spending 15, 20% of your time doing admin, then it's time to outsource that. And if that person's time, I don't know what a virtual assistant is nowadays, £35 an hour.
Not even. So, you can get $12, $15 an hour.
Is it? Oh, okay. So,
well, if you go global,
yeah, of course, yeah, that makes sense as well. Yeah, and if you're doing that, and your time on site is, I don't know, £100 an hour, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to realise where the money's being lost, where it's being saved. Because and what gets thrown back at me is, yeah, it's going to take me 3 hours, Ray, to show them I can do it in 45 minutes. Well, yeah, but it may be once, it may be twice, but for the long term, you can go out, you can be pricing more work, you can go out, you can be developing relationships. You have to, this ABM, you should always be marketing. You should always be marketing. It's just trying to think of some other areas where
well, like even from my own business, like we've always used freelance people. So you're trying to stick to the core business ethos on the mission statement of the business. And if you're getting distracted by administration type stuff, timesheets and all this kind of stuff, have a higher strategy, helicopter view of it every month. Yes, but in the weeds, that's not making you money. That's actually taking your time away from the customers, taking your time away from the jobs, taking your time away from the lads. And, what is it that you bring to the table? Is it your forte that you're brilliant as a tradesperson and inside out? Because if that's your wheelhouse, that's where you should be. And that's what I find is that, juggling all these balls to just, it just complicates things. But exactly what you said, if you say to yourself, right, you know what, I'm $100 an hour person, therefore that task is a $10 task. I need to bring somebody else in to do that. Now, I would say, hand on heart, over the last 10 years, we're north of 250 grand in our own business on freelancers, on freelancer websites, for that very reason. And then, like, turn on, turn off, certain people coming in. But marketing was a big thing that was outsourced. PA is outsourced. Even academic research and reports and all that kind of stuff. All these people are out there that have a niche that are very good to help people. So even outsourcing the analytics of the business to have somebody running through the numbers. There's some fantastic people on these platforms as well. We could have another podcast on how to outsource, which is probably, in fairness, that's my wheelhouse, which is outsourcing. But, it just gets me that you don't have to be alone in the process. As I listen to you, it's like the loneliness really still sticks out for me for a lot of the business owners that are listening to this.
Yeah, it's. I don't think necessarily it's their fault. In the same way that I couldn't hang a door, it's. I think if it's because there's a lack of business education at apprentice level, and I think with tradesmen, they go onto site, they hang the door, and everything's very tangible. Everything is very real. There's real wood. There's a real boiler, and they are in it, and they're doing it themselves. And the culture within it. There are a few, but in the main, they find asking for help. It's no, I can do this myself. It's I should be able to do this myself. But that very discussion and the very example you just given is a massive learning curve. If somebody can embrace the art of delegation and the art of art and not being too proud to ask for help, if you take I don't know Muhammad Ali, Tiger Woods, Bill Gates, every single one of them has got some kind of mentor or some kind of advisor that they relate to. And they didn't get there by chance. And I always say, I know, because everything I do, I try to break down to layman's terms and make it, because I think accountants and I think economists and stuff like that, they make things very difficult to understand, and then they sell it as a framework. Whereas I try to break it down into very ins and outs, ups and downs, and very, very strip it down into basics. And I think with a lot of people, they try to overcomplicate the situation. But if you can look at what you do, and I use a tool, it's kind of a matrix, and it's there's 4 grids if anybody's watching this, it'll be 4 grids on a piece of paper. And what you love doing and what you're good at, what you like doing, but you're okay with it, you do it. At the bottom, something you do you don't really like and things you do you actually hate. If you was to dump all of the tasks that you do onto a sheet of paper and then put them into the quadrants, the 2 quadrants at the bottom, they're the things that you should be delegating. They're the things that are taking up your time. You're not particularly good at them, but you're doing them because there's nobody else to do them. So if you could take those tasks and give them to somebody else who's more disciplined and skillful in those particular areas, that frees up your time. Exactly the example of what you was just given, to be able to go out and earn more money, grow the company's reputation, to do some quotes, to do some marketing. But unfortunately, they get in the business, not own the business, for the old analogy. And I always say to people, unless you've got a business that can continue to operate with you not in it, all you've done is created a well-paid job. You do not have a business unless you can come away from it and it can run on its own. And you can't do that by being the focal point of it all the time. You have to. I think there was an interview with Richard Branson, and somebody asked him a question, and he said, I'm not the cleverest man in the room. He said, but what I do is I surround myself with people that are much more knowledgeable in their particular field than me. And when they all squeeze, I jump higher. So if somebody like Richard Branson is giving that advice, you don't need to be.
But there is an argument as well, Ray, and you'll speak to this probably better than I can, but capacity of people to actually deliver what they're trying to deliver as a business versus the reality of what they actually can achieve as a business. And what I mean by that is, I wonder if people just stop and think about it and say to themselves, do you know what? Rather than having the 10 guys around me and all the overheads and all the stress, if I'd done this myself with 2 people, I could probably pull 100 grand a year or 150 grand a year salary and have a nice lifestyle business for myself, rather than trying to stretch and reach for the skies and, maybe get to the summit that I'm trying to think in, or maybe people aren't even thinking of what the summit is. Do they think that they want to get to £1 million company? Back to your revenue, vanity conversation. But like, I'd love people to sort of see more value in the sense that less stress, less hassle, less risk, smaller scale that has the capacity to be flexible, to move up and down, but still be in a model that maintains a brilliant lifestyle, great for the home life, great for the mental health, great for, business, in the sense that, oh no, let's just shrink it and give me 150, and maybe I might get 200 grand a year, and I'm comfortable with that. And I don't think, from talking to a lot of the small to medium enterprise, they're just go, go, go. And I don't think they have that, personal conversation with themselves. Maybe you could speak to us on that.
Yeah, I think one of the key factors for any business owner is mindset. So if I'm talking to a person, and I don't do this because it has to be reciprocal, they have to get on with me and we have to get on with them. But one thing I'm looking for is what is their capacity? What is their mindset towards change? Because was it Einstein said, if you keep expecting different results, I could keep doing the same thing. It's the first sign of madness. So, are they prepared to change what they do if they want to go in a particular direction? But one of the questions I will always ask is, what is your definition of success? And I had an electrical client who, and I speak very candidly, he said to me, he doesn't want a big office. He doesn't want masses of staff. He wants to come off the tools and play golf twice a week and have a healthy lifestyle and spend time with his family. That is very similar to what you just said. And what is wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with that. That person having that lifestyle is just as successful as the person who's got a £10 million company with X amount of staff. Because it's surely, to me, a business is only there as a conduit to give you the lifestyle that you desire. And if that lifestyle is, and he, by the way, he plays golf twice a week, and I think he has 7 guys working for him now. So when I'm working with him, I will structure it to a point. He wants to be involved in it. He doesn't want to come away from it, but he doesn't want to be on the tools. So you design the business around that. If you're talking to somebody, I don't know, who wants to franchise their business, then it has to be more systems. It has to be more process driven, and the aspirations and the systems have to be different. But I think you've hit a nail on the head. I think because, and this is, I think, a lot of it because they just start working and it grows incrementally, a bit like the E-Myth book, your technician, and if you've read that book. But a lot of people, because they don't put a plan in place, they've never really sat down, as you suggested, and thought about what the future looks like. They've come out of university or come off the apprentices. They've gone out in business on their own. They're touting for work. They've got work. They've become busy. They're too busy to get somebody, so they brought somebody else in to help them. Have no idea financially how that's going to work. They just bring them in because they know they're busy. Work smart, work hard, but so there's been no education to that point. Because they're busy, they feel they need somebody. So, and they continue to grow and grow, but they've never taken a step back to actually think about what am I doing this for? It's my job, but some people have a mentality that if they're on site banging things and knocking things around, they're doing well. Well, if you're underpricing it and if it's the wrong, you're not getting paid or you're not pricing it properly, then why are you doing it? You're going to end up being unwell.
Well, let me, because you're the expert and I'm not.
Yeah.
We like to
wait and see how I answer.
Yeah, I'm setting you up here, so just be careful.
Yeah.
I won't set you up, but
that's all right. Go on.
Let's do an exercise.
If I don't know, I'll ring someone. Can I phone a friend if I don't know?
You can't. Not on this one. I'm going to throw a curveball at you, right? And let's just go and see where this goes, right?
Okay.
But hypothetically, let's me and you model something, okay? And then decide whether that business has actually got legs or whether we should put it in the bin and make it a lifestyle business, for example. So if I was to say to you that I have 5 staff, so office manager, project manager, if you want to take that down, office manager, project manager, and then 3 on the ground, So tradespeople that are kind of, this is me as a small to medium enterprise running a mech and elect business or a roofing business. Let's call it Gavin Coyle roofing for hypothesis, if you like. I'm turning over 500,000 a year in terms of revenue, and my margin is in around, let's say, 15% in terms of what I try to achieve in my modeling of pricing the jobs. Now, if we were to take a step by step back, what I'm trying to establish here is this fundamentally a flawed business model for this type of overhead and this type of margin? And, you know, what I'm trying to establish is, do we need to get to £1 million business plus in order to have a viable business within construction? Or is the 500,000 and below the 500,000, doesn't have to be 500,000, could be 250,000. Is that a model that is just non-sustainable over maybe a 2-year period, that if people feel that they're not moving the needle and they have that type of a model, that it's time to have a really serious forensic look of their business and kind of a wake-up call to say, look, you're just pushing paperwork around here. You're not going to survive on these type of numbers. And the reason I'm asking, and it's probably unfair of you to throw this out at you, but I do see, I personally feel in my own heart from running my own businesses, 500,000 and less is high risk business from what I see, especially with that type of an overhead. And then to put in a small margin of like 15%, people might think 15% is a big margin. It's not a big margin.
This is gross margin, yeah?
This is gross margin, yeah. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
So who knows where net is going to come in it, and then obviously variations and mix-ups and quality issues can creep into it. So there's a load of little variables, obviously, that we're not taking into account here. I suppose what I'm trying to get to is, you know, employing people is a risk to the business. I see the human element as one of the biggest risks within any business, any small business that you're trying to grow. And you've already alluded to it. A bad hire is just, you know, from a motivation point of view, it's sapping, but also from a financial point of view and stress point of view, it's really bad. But, you know, can people survive on a 5-person construction business in a 500,000 model on those type of numbers?
Right. Okay. So yeah, put me on the spot. With regards to the tradesmen, are they PAYE or subcontractors? PAYE, and they've just put up to 15% over here. So it's fun. The most people now are right. Okay. I'll tell you. So what I would do in a situation like this, if somebody had come and knocked on my door like this, I would start to analyze the business from a numerical perspective. So first of all, I would want to know what are their aspirations? What is their idea of success? And I will answer the ultimate question at the end of it, but just to go through the process, I would want to know where they want to go. And I'm assuming they won't have a plan because they've just built on their success. I'd want to know where, as they grow, you know, what is their target market? Are they doing schools? You know, what is the areas they're doing? Are they doing, say, residential? Are they looking to do some commercial? What is the capacity that they could undertake, and what is minimum in terms of return can they undertake? So I was trying to get some numbers first. I use some basic crude kind of numbers to check on staff. So I would look at the profitability. I would look at the turnover and divide it by the number of people in the company. And that will give me a figure. Now, that figure, if I decide then to bring somebody else in, I can look, let's assume I bring somebody else in and I'm looking to increase the turnover by 10%. Based on whatever, say in this case, it's 50,000. If that guy is not going to bring me in 50,000, then the time probably isn't right to bring him in. So, you know, you look at the numbers and you start to analyze the business and see, the other than some exceptional people, most people It's the data that tells you what to do. And because they don't monitor the business and collect the data, they're doing it at gut feeling or finger in the air. So I always suggest that you collate some sort of data from your transactions. When me and Colin had Sutherlands, I knew from every single supplier, every single client, what my success ratio with him was, how much we spent with them, how much. So when an inquiry come in, say it was Howard the Walden Estates, which I know we only got 4% from, or if it was, say Jones Lang LaSalle, where we got more from, and I only had one guy available, you can tell which job I'm going to go for. So it wasn't me being, God, how did he have the foresight to see that? The data is telling me. So I would always collect the data. So that is a handy formula to use. If you add up all your overheads and you divide them by this 15%, if that's your gross margin, not the actual number, the actual percentage, that will give you your break-even figure for the year ahead. You haven't even started business yet. So if you do that, work out all of your overheads, divide it by 15%, that will tell you what you need to turn over just to break even. So straight away, you've got a turnover. You can compare that with your 500,000 and straight away you'll see where you're positioned. And if you are looking to grow by 10 or 15%, the numbers will start to paint a picture for you. And, again, yeah, all right, they're employed. I think nowadays, God knows what the government's doing, in terms of helping small businesses, but by putting more pressure on them like this, it's forcing more people to go on their own, and then you can be liable for IR35, and then you get penalised, and it's criminal what's going on. But so in terms of, if you was to say to me, would I work with somebody that's got 15% turning over 500,000 and they're a roofing company with these people? If the owner of the company was willing to embrace change and he was willing to come to a plan, produce a plan. Again, sometimes people talk about 15-year plans, 20-year plans. Construction companies can't relate to that. They have trouble relating to vision and stuff like that because it's intangible. But even if you've done a year plan for the sake of argument, up to 3 years, but that's just a target. The actual to get the wheels going, if you've done a 1 year plan. And I felt that they could change, and I felt I could, by going into the direct cost, the cost of goods sold, and making savings there. I reckon from day one, if this person I could probably get that to 25% to start with. So, I don't see it's more about the willingness to change, the quality of the tradesman. I've made mistakes in the past where I've had people in my company. We had a particular accounts lady. We grew from, as you know, into millions. And looking back now, there's an argument I should have asked her to leave because she was very set in her ways. She was brilliant at what she'd done, but very set in her ways. And yes, invest in the training, but if they're unwilling to improve or change the way you do things, then unfortunately, no matter how hard it is, for example, I'm doing a workshop, and one of the workshops I'm doing in June is a lot of people have a skill set. Take a roofing company, take a digital marketer, any industry, and they have a particular service and they promote the service. And this can be, if a carpenter's listening to this, or a plumber's listening to this, or a electrician, this can relate to pretty much any business. And I can use digital, or I can use a heating engineer, but they are trained in a certain way. And because of that, they're conditioned to they don't go outside certain parameters in the way they do their business. Now, I would argue very strongly, and that's why I'm doing this workshop, is that within that, you've got a lot of different skill sets that you can actually package up and sell as independent products. So you're not actually reinventing the wheel, you're just using your skill set to create a product that you can sell and market independently. So, carpenters can, obviously there's joiners, a carpenter, depends on where you go with this, but if they were to look at their business objectively and sometimes come out of their comfort zone, you can maximize income just using your skill set in slightly different directions. And the world is so competitive now. There's only real two ways to have competitive advantage, and it's kind of price and differentiation. So most of it is price. A lot of it is in our industry is price. But we come second in some inquiries, but we won the work because that person had worked with us before, or the way we packaged a tender, the way we put in a methodology within that. It wasn't asked for, but we used to have a company charter. And I know, forgive me, I'm going off on a tangent from your roofing company, but it's looking at how you can do your business differently. And if there's 3 roofing companies in front of me and one particular one provides more service, or they provide a charter and they say, if we do this, we guarantee that. If we do this, we guarantee that. You're getting credibility, you're getting trust and reassurance, you're taking away the customer's problems. And I think too many people in any industry just do it that way because that's how it's always been done. They don't try to look at things differently. And in today's world with AI, and do you know there's only 36% of construction companies use digital products? It's criminal in a world like in today's world. We are nowhere near the software that's out there now, and it is so much easier now to become different, to differentiate. You've just got to have that mindset. So, forgive me, Gavin, I've kind of gone around the houses here, but yeah. So yes, I think they can make money. 15% is low because I'm assuming their overheads are going to be quite high. It depends if they've got an office and, the vans. Yeah. But yeah. Every single decision you make should have some financial assessment behind it. Yes. Sometimes the gut feeling may be correct, but it's so much reassuring if you can see it in black and white. So do I buy the vans? Do I lease the vans? Payment structures for the guys. I always overpaid mine a little bit to keep them. Some people knuckle it down, harden them, and then they wonder why they get a subpar performance, or people are leaving. And
even P for P, like pay for performance. There's innovative things you can do with people to say, look, if you get that job done, it means that there's 2 weeks that we have capacity to move on to the next job, which means I'm going to give you a pay performance out of that. But obviously, as long as you don't affect quality or safety, people can introduce innovative things into their business to sort of give them that sort of scale. But definitely, even I threw the 15% in because I knew you're just not making money. You're not making money at 15%. So the question for the listeners, Ray, I suppose, is what is that number today for them? That's what they need to think about.
Yeah. If their idea of for example, if they're only making 15%, and let's assume we can't do anything with it gross yet, they're probably breaking even with their overheads. They couldn't be losing money on this. Now, if there is a lifestyle business, there's a very strong argument just to go back and increase the profit, reduce the staff, reduce the workload, and the turnover will go slightly, but the profit will go up, and you can probably have a good lifestyle. If your ambition is to have 8 or 9 engineers, tradesmen, and you want to stick with it, then you may have to take 1 step backwards to go 2 steps forward. But if you've got to this without any form of monitoring, any form of planning, then I would say that's a recipe for disaster. Yeah, that wouldn't. I'd be concerned on those figures, definitely. But yeah, you'll be walking the plank, and I would imagine I'd probably say we need to cut back and let's start again. Let's consolidate, depending on where you want to go, and start again. But there's, you need to, you need to stop thinking just about the work itself. And that's where, whether they rely on them, they've got somebody they know who's grown a business, go and ask for help. If there's not necessarily me, but anybody, a coach, anybody that they feel that they would give them some good advice, go out and get the advice. A lot of people don't have a sounding board. I've got clients who their wife don't really care what's going on and they've got nobody to turn to. So it's it's nice to have somebody that you can confide in and talk with without judgment, but also having accountability is also extremely important, because if you know that you've said you're going to do something, if you've got anything about you, you're going to meet that person again, you're going to get it done. And if that step is a step towards your development, then that can only bode well for the future.
I'm going to throw some other curveballs at you now, because we're nearly.
And it's fine. I hope I haven't gone off too much on a tangent and people losing track.
I'm really glad we've done that exercise, and that wasn't pre-planned, by the way, for anybody. So I hit Ray cold with that. So I think if anyone's listening, they'll agree. All right, there's a lot of ifs and buts, but generally the concept is what we were trying to get across from an analytical point of view, which is really what we're trying to do today. So, you can reach out to Ray directly yourselves. But Ray, from just a few personal curveballs, if you don't mind. And
sure.
Again, I'm going to catch you cold, but a favorite book that you would recommend. Doesn't have to be business now. It doesn't have to be business.
Yeah, I read a lot of books, and I have a favorite author, a management author, is Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan is strategic coach. He owns one of the biggest coaching companies in the world. I've always got a book on. It's all I listen to in the car. Can I give a few? Can I give a couple? Yeah. I like Diane's book called Gap in the Game, because a lot of people in business, they'll set themselves some goals, and let's assume that they turn over 500,000, and they say at the end of this year we're going to turn over 1 million, and they get to 800,000. They beat themselves up. They consider themselves a failure because they didn't gain. They didn't reach the top of the hill. I always say to them, can you just freeze? Look back. You're 300,000 better off. You've got the foundations you've built. So don't always, look at where you've come from. Look at the gain that you've had. Because if we'd gone back to the 500,000 and said, okay, in a year's time, you can do 800,000, you just snap my arm off. So he talks about how people can structure that again, it's mindset. It's having the mindset. If I'm honest, when I was younger and I had my companies, it was all about people. I was always entertaining, but I didn't really strategically market myself and the company. And one book that has come to I'm certified in it, so I suppose I will do, but it's called Story Brand by Donald Miller. That is a very simple framework for marketing, and it's the one that I probably use more than ever at the moment with my clients. So obviously I know the framework, but if you're going to get a book, that is a very good book called Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I'll finish on one because it's probably the granddaddy of them all, is Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I think that's probably, I know it's written in the 30s, but a lot of it is applicable today, where he interviewed Edison and Thomas Ford, and it's basically highlights. I've actually got it up on the wall. It's the 17 keys of success, but it's, he went around and interviewed all the successful millionaires, billionaires in the world at the time, and he collated their traits, their personality traits and mastermind groups and stuff like that. It's invaluable. It's still very valid today.
Okay. Tell us something about you that not many people would resonate with, Ray Murphy. I didn't know that about Ray. Something.
Right, yeah, I'll have to keep it clean. Yeah,
you have to keep it clean. Yeah, we don't want any marriages lost over this conversation. Something that people might not know about Ray Murphy. I told you it was curveball time.
Yeah. I've got some soppy things. I don't know if that's really. I'm trying to find something that's worthwhile.
Don't overthink it, Ray. It's something that
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. What have I done? I've been in films with a number of people. Rennie Selweger.
No way.
But it sounds very impressive. But I was only a film extra. I done film extras with a number of people, and
right.
I was in Judy and some other films. But
wow.
Yeah, but
that is
that's quite. I don't do it anymore, and now I'm going to lose so much credibility. But it was. I was interested to see behind the scenes how it went, and then I've done about, Guy Pearce and quite a few well-known people. But I won't keep name dropping. But it was an experience. Yeah, it was an experience. I don't do it anymore though.
Tell me about, just before we wrap up, what's the future hold for you? What way do you operate? People want to get in touch with you. Give us a bit of a sort of a lead out in terms of your business, who you're helping at the moment, and who you can possibly help for the future in terms of the construction industry.
Yeah, I have a passion for helping. I do work with a variety of clients, but my niche and all my advertising and marketing is directed at construction and trades. I feel that I know there's a lot of people, and I don't mean this detrimentally, but there's a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon now because they realise the trades and construction industry is an industry where people need help. But a lot of them don't come from a hands-on background. I have owned a retail fit-out company. I've owned a construction company. I come from a building background with my parents, not me and my family, my brothers. But I've made some horrendous business decisions, and that helps me help people avoid the pitfalls. I'm very passionate about helping trade and construction companies because I know, especially in construction with a strange idiosyncrasy payment, the way they do payments in construction. And I just want to help as many, I do Samaritans, I do homeless stuff. I have a passion for helping people, but I plan everything I do. Everything I show them as well. I'll share this very quickly. I have when it comes to cash flow management, I have a 5 bank account system that I tell people to structure. It would contact me outside of this if people want more detail, but too many people the amount of construction companies I've met, they say, "Oh, Ray, I've got a 20 grand tax bill in a week's time and I'm not allowed for it." Well, I teach people a cash management system, and I just want to help as many construction and trade companies become successful, because every single business owner deserves to reap the rewards from the effort they've put in, and by no fault of their own, because they weren't given the business training at the beginning. Some of them come through it, but the majority, as we just said, suicide rate in construction 3% higher than national average. There's a horrible percentage of people that don't come out of it because they didn't have the information. So if it's not me, get yourself coach or help. I would recommend that, but I want to help as many construction companies and tradesmen as I can. Yeah, the website is, I've got a builders podcast as well. It's called the Business Builders podcast. People can find there, and people can contact me if they would like to go on that. The easiest way, my website is obviously www.iconacoaching.com. And if they want to email me personally, it's ray@iconacoaching.com. I'm always available. Even if somebody doesn't want to engage on a long-term coaching, I tend to work with people for 3 months or 6 months, and they pay up front. I do it cheaper than the average because I just want to help people, and I'm at the stage of my life where I don't need to charge crazy numbers. And even if they wanted to ring me and say, "Ray, I've got this problem," I'd answer the problem. if I can help somebody and it's only a half hour, 45-minute call, I'll be more than happy to do it.
Well, that's the reason we wanted you on the show, Ray, because you are a true gent and you definitely come across as somebody that's very honourable and very passionate as well, and that definitely came across in today's episode. I want to thank you so much for giving us your time and your expertise, and sorry for the curveballs, but it's just what we do. And we'll put your stuff in the show notes in terms of your contact details. Anybody looking to reach out, have a chat with Ray, definitely worth 20-minute coffee chat online or whatever it is. Ray, thanks very much. We'll see you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gavin. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully I didn't go off on too many tangents. And there's so much to cover, but I really appreciate you asking me, and even if I've helped one person, it's been a success.
Well, I definitely think you did that. With me anyway. So have a great day, and we'll see you again in the future for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and every success with the show. Thank you very much.
Hello, Gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business.